Thank you. Chair of the session, fellow panelists, and distinguished members of the audience. I feel honored to be asked to participate in this prestigious 1.5 track dialogue being organized by IORA Secretariat, MEA, and the IDSA. Engaging collectively in such practical and conceptual thinking, as evident in its thematic framework, is critical for the future of the Indian Ocean region, our organization IORA, and dare I say, global stability itself. It is both a pleasure and stimulating to find oneself in the company of such experts. May I also compliment the organizers for the conceptual boldness in choosing this theme with a view to incorporating the results of the deliberation outcome document of this meeting. Now, broadly, geostrategic cooperation for Indian Ocean architecture. The basic point really is that a broader security framework provides a stable basis for cooperation meeting various kinds of security challenges, as it reflects a broader understanding between various stakeholders, especially the more powerful ones, as to how collective endeavor for enhancing security serve the larger geopolitical interests. Clarity in geopolitical objectives is important, can be developed, and if necessary, through incremental steps and exploration of each other's mind through dialogue. Without going to specifics, one can say that the absence of such understanding complicates any effort to enhance security and to develop sinews for cooperation for the larger collective good of the community's region. Now, largely what the security milieu at the moment is like. The Indian Ocean waters are largely placid, which offers the prospect of developing an architecture, let's say ground rules and habits and practice of cooperation, which can create stability enduring enough for buoyant economic cooperation in the littoral, tapping the full potential of blue economy and with the participation of extra-regional countries. However, this prospect is not infinite, a reality which remains a critical challenge as well as a benchmark to assess the effectiveness of the littoral efforts and of the IORA itself as an organization. The geostrategic competition in the Indian Ocean region accelerating, and the tensions of adjacent waters are threatening to spill over into the Indian Ocean. The near-permanent presence of extra-regional navies and the creation of newer naval bases on the Indian Ocean littoral as a result of geostrategic competition as well as ongoing conflicts in the Middle Eastern hinterland portends the undermining the existing maritime order, as well as spotlighting its limitations to address the existing and looming challenges. Importantly, there is no formal security architecture overall for the Indian Ocean. The growing geostrategic competition is manifesting itself in naval rivalry and with the attendant balance of power cyclicality, with concerns about navigation through oceanic choke points. The larger issues of capacity are key to address these challenges. Regional instability, especially at the various oceanic choke points, becomes a challenge multiplier due to lack of capacity overall, including in respect of piracy, terrorism, etc., all of which represent a serious challenge and which potentially can undermine the maritime order in the Indian Ocean region. The situation has also led to the phenomenon of floating armories about which you talked earlier. In this changing security paradigm, the growing role of non-state actors is a major challenge due to the proliferation of individual empowering technologies and a trend of asymmetric naval warfare. The abortive attempt by Al-Qaeda to capture Pakistan naval ship Zulfikar in September 2014 is an alarming reminder about such possibilities. The Indian Ocean maritime order also faces the challenge of climate change. Growing frequency of extreme weather events, cyclones and tsunamis test response capacities at regional, national and community levels, with each successive event degrading institutional capacities overall and potentially leading to further instability. These phenomena, coupled with rising sea level and oceanic degradation, affect coastal areas and ocean economy, sustaining huge populations. Coastal areas host major populations and industrial centers. IORA member states comprise countries with widely divergent levels of political and economic development, as well as institutional capacities, and this characteristic is unique to this organization. IORA's holistic approach has been in the form of its looking for a regional approach to maritime safety and security. The various aspects of this challenge are covered in the different sub-themes under the Jakarta Concord. The emphasis is on enhanced cooperation in maritime security, sharing expertise and resources for enhanced safety of shipping and maritime and marine environments, regional cooperation addressing transboundary challenges, and importantly, freedom of navigation in overflight in accordance with international law, including UNCLOS. The aspect of collective effort is also visible under sub-themes of disaster risk management, academic, science and technology cooperation, cross-cutting issues, and IORA's external engagement. The IORA Action Plan fleshes out the sub-themes under short-term, medium-term, etc., and long-term time frame. Prime Minister Modi's articulation or his vision of security architecture is one which is inclusive, open, transparent, and balanced, providing for mutual reassurance. It addresses the conundrum as to how the security architecture of the Indian Ocean is to be shaped in the future to meet the growing challenges which the current maritime order is not able to, and it comprises the following elements. I won't go through them, but there are one or two main important points. and he states that his vision, the primary responsibility and security responsibility rests on the Indian Ocean rim countries, whilst recognizing interests of extra-regional countries which would be accommodated through a climate of trust and transparency, respect of international maritime rules, and peaceful resolution of maritime disputes. And of course, maritime security sort of capacity building. He also talks about the Indian Ocean Naval Symposium, and he says that it aims to deepen our mutual understanding on maritime challenges and strengthen our collective ability to address them. And of course, then he has his own vision as to how the IORA should develop as an important instrument for a sustainable and prosperous future in the region. So, a strong organization necessary in the absence of which the current challenges would multiply several-fold due to lack of national and regional institutional capacity. Larger issue is of capacity at regional and national levels by means of a collaborative mechanism. Such an organization would help create ground rules for the use of common resources, the navigation routes by littoral and other stakeholder countries. It would create habits of working together and thereby increase strategic trust amongst the stakeholders. It would also help create capacity both for the wider maritime awareness and capability for commensurate response. An institutional consciousness as to what is involved in the defense of the maritime system. What is the way ahead? In terms of regional solution to maritime safety and security challenges, along with the development of a cooperative mechanism for sustainable development, there are some of the questions posed in the agenda papers. The composition character of the working group on maritime safety and security. The country cluster system, specifically handling a priority activity, may convene at the level of concerned minister handling the maritime security issues. In India's case, it would need to be the defense minister, who actually controls the Navy and the Coast Guard, as well as a senior representative of the concerned ministry dealing with a particular subject, terrorism, smuggling, human trafficking, coastal policy, security, etc. A troika representative from the concerned foreign office should be involved in the planning, steering, and follow-up of the meeting outcome. The concerned official of the IORA Secretariat should also be involved in this exercise. Depending upon the specific agenda item, suitable think tanks can be identified in different countries which can flesh out specific agenda item as a collective input for the working group deliberations. Because of cross-cutting nature of the working group's scope of activity, it could receive feedback from other working groups relevant to its area of interest. It could also shape the relevant agenda item in the other working group or use inputs for its own work. Of particular relevance here are the working groups on disaster risk management, blue economy, and academic, science and technology cooperation. Depending upon the agenda issue, the working group can have consultation with IORA dialogue partners for their inputs. In follow-up, capacity building issues need to be identified in case of each member country and ways found for closing capacity gaps in suitable measure. These could be through training as well as information sharing. The cluster handling country, the incumbent chair, and the designated secretariat official should remain in communication intercession for monitoring the follow-up amongst the member countries, as well as generate fresh ideas through inputs from the consumers of the information generated in the working group meetings. This arrangement will ensure continuity, monitoring, and establishment of a memory bank. This should also ensure substantive granular reports for the summit meetings. The working group should also develop the capacity with necessary analytical backup to monitor all incidents raising concern from the point of view of maritime security and safety. They should also have the capacity to draw appropriate lessons to be shared with the member countries. Now, in terms of enhanced collaboration with existing international, regional, and sub-regional cooperative ventures, which is again an agenda item, the IORA Concord specifically mentions enhancing and deepening cooperation with dialogue partners, including sharing of technical expertise and other resources for mutual benefit. IONS can be a useful partner through a consultative process. IORA Perth Declaration dated 9th October 2014 states that the organization was, and I quote, committed to work collaboratively with the Indian Ocean Naval Symposium and other relevant organizations to address shared maritime and security challenges that threaten sea lanes of communication and transportation in the Indian Ocean, notably piracy and terrorism, unquote. Prime Minister Modi, in his above-quoted speech, mentioned special role for IONS in enhancing maritime security. Since these are two separate organizations, a system of consultation prior to specific meetings can be established so that the experience of one can be shared and specific problems inscribed in the respective agenda of the two organizations. All members of IORA are represented in the other organization at the level of heads of national navies and can drive its agenda too. In passing, it may be mentioned that IONS looks at interoperability issues amongst diverse set of naval forces and coast guards. Maritime security and safety are now on the agenda of nearly all sub-regional IOR organizations. Consultations with them on a regular basis can be carried out by the cluster chair, Troika representative, the secretary official, with a view to seeing heightened pan-Indian Ocean profile for IORA. It can also have periodic consultation with extra-regional organizations such as ASEAN, East Asia Summit, the Arctic Council, to share experiences and learn from the best practices from each other. It can also have consultation with specialized multilateral agencies to develop best practices from its own point of view. Similarly, at the headquarters of the cluster handling country, interested visitors could be received and information garnered from the discussion with them could be shared generally with the member states. Overall capacity enhancement of the working group. The inclusion of this theme in the agenda of this working group is recognition that maritime safety and security needs anchorage in a strategic architecture and geostrategic cooperation. This approach entails a capacity to follow, institutionally speaking, strategic trends and to act so as to steer the architecture towards stability. Also, post-IORA summit, there is a desire to profile this truly pan-Indian Ocean organization for such a role. The Prime Minister Modi's Sagar speech articulates the inclusive cooperative basis for the shaping up of such a strategic architecture so that the IOR could avoid being caught into the turbulence of the larger global fluidity and flux. International Institute of Strategic Studies London Strategic Survey 2016 warns of the splintering of the underpinnings of geopolitics. Equally, the US National Intelligence Council, projecting global trends up to 2030, describes the difficulties analysis of the global trends today by underlying conundrums such as the impact of decline or reassertion of US role in the international system, dynamics of governance and exploration of complicated relationships among actors including non-state, rate of change in respect to trajectories of rise or decline of different states, framework of relationship between trends, discontinuities and crises, better identification looming disequilibria, etc. This task, though ambitious but necessary, could be undertaken by a process analogous to the Council for Security Cooperation in the Asia-Pacific, CSCAP, which could look at, in a less straitjacketed manner like the CSCAP, both traditional and non-traditional security threats. A pan-IORA network of think tanks could be established which would constantly keep looking at the larger objectives and purposes of this organization, whilst devoting time and energy to the issues of a strategic architecture relevant to this working group. It could also direct efforts towards a regime complex for the IORA, where the IORA could play, and I quote here from another analyst, where IORA could play, and I quote, the role of a systems integrator, facilitator, interlocutor, and even translator, unquote. All this presupposes strengthened secretariat capacities to absorb the flow of information and to complete the feedback loop in the manner required. Thank you.